many of you are considering Donald Trump for the caucus? Okay. Well, thank you. I understand that because I think there's two America First candidates in this race. That's Donald Trump and me.
Well, that's Vivek Ramaswamy speaking in Iowa County yesterday, billing himself as the Trump heir apparent as much as a challenger. You know, right now the polls show him running behind the former president, as well as Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley in Iowa. But you know, the state's caucus system, well, that in the past has given us some surprises, vaulting the more conservative contender to first place and sending the nation a message. Some say the caucus system can benefit an outsider like Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek Ramaswamy joins us now from Des Moines. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us here on the Fox News Channel this morning.
Good morning. Good to see you, and things are going great here.
How is it going? You are in the fourth place, but you have seen a lot on the ground. What's the reaction? What do you predict?
Yeah. I think the polls are drastically off, Eric, because what we see on the ground is many of the supporters of my campaign in particular are first-time ever caucus goers. Many of them from the next generation, many of them traditional America First patriots, but who have not participated recently in a caucus and who have not been polled. So I predict a major surprise on January 15th, and I like where the expectations have been set. So I think we're going to shatter those expectations. That's going to propel me forward to the next phase of this race. But I think a lot of these Iowans in this final phase, they're getting into the details. It's not just talking about the border and checking the box. I've offered the clearest strategy for how we would actually use our military to seal that border, actually end birthright citizenship for the kids of illegal migrants, and to return anybody who's in this country illegally to their country of origin. And I think a lot of these voters care a lot more, especially in Iowa right now, about those specifics, Eric. I think they're done with the talking points. They want detail, and that's what I'm giving them.
Yeah, you talk about first-time voters. Let's show you some photos. This is you last night. I was watching you at a town hall, and after the town hall, you stood up and took pictures with lots of folks. And what struck me is you had real conversations with them. And you asked basically everybody, have you voted in a caucus before? And nearly everybody who you talked to said no. So what does it mean if you're bringing out new voters and people who have never attended a caucus before?
Well, look, I think it means two things. One is we're going to deliver a surprise on January 15th. But that's also, Eric, how I plan to deliver a landslide in the general election. And I do think that's going to take a different kind of candidate. Somebody coming from the outside. I'm a businessman, not a politician. But also somebody with fresh legs who can reach and lead that new generation of Americans. 40% of our donors are first-time ever donors to the GOP, compared to 2% for ordinary Republican candidates. And I think that's critical in this election. This cannot be another 50.1 fight between the Democrats and Republicans. This has to be a Reagan 1980-style moral mandate. And I think I'm the only candidate who can bring that next generation along. And I think we're going to prove we're doing that in the Iowa caucus when we deliver a massive surprise on January 15th. Iowans also reward somebody who shows up. I will have done over 330 events by the time of the Iowa caucus on the ground in Iowa. That is more than all of the other candidates combined. And I do think people here reward somebody who not only shows up, but goes off the talking points to have real and authentic conversations. That's what's made this process so rewarding. We're doing it as a family. My wife is a throat surgeon by day, but is on the campaign trail with me. I think she's also struck a positive nerve with Iowans here as well. And so I think we're going to expect a major surprise in about 9 days.
When you talk about that, I want the folks to know that the Iowa caucus, it's not like going to the voting booth, as they know. You have different groups in a room, in a town hall, VFW hall, firehouse, this sort of thing, and everyone discusses, and they literally move around to whoever is basically convinced to go to somebody else. Do you think that you have the firebrand of support for basic, ordinary Iowans to try and convince their neighbors and friends to come over to your corner of the room?
I do, and that's what we're seeing on the ground. I think the media is completely missing the plot, as has happened in prior cycles, Eric, but sometimes the mainstream media at least doesn't learn their lesson. I think we're going to teach them the lesson this time around, where they're propping up certain favored candidates. I think a lot of the super PACs are propping up certain candidates. In my case, my biggest donor is me. I don't report to the establishment. I report to the people of this country. And I think a lot of the people here on the ground in Iowa, a state that goes first for a reason, understand that, and I think we are on track to deliver a shock to the system. And I think that's going to propel us forward, not just for me to be the nominee, as I expect, Eric, but to win this general election in a moral mandate landslide that reunites this country Biden said he wanted to reunite this country. He did the exact opposite. And I think the combination of the mainstream media to this administration, they've actually divided this country to a near breaking point. And I think it's going to take a leader who's able to speak the hard truths, not just to the Democrats, but to our own party, to also reunite, frankly, both parties in this country as a whole. And I think that's how we take our America First agenda to the next level. And I think I'm the only candidate in this race who can do that.
Yeah, you talk about surprising the mainstream media and the narrative. Let me show you the past winners, for example. 2016, some of the more conservative, Ted Cruz. 2012, Rick Santorum. 2008, Mike Huckabee. And here's a look at what concerns Iowans, the last Fox News poll in December. Economic issues, 38%, then immigration. Speaking of the economy, you said something yesterday that really struck out at me. I was stunned. Social Security checks. Folks who are now, if you get Social Security and you're watching us right now, you know that check that you get in the mailbox? A few $100s, $1,000 or so. You said at an event yesterday that if the government had fulfilled its fiduciary responsibility, that check could be $18,000 a person. Tell us about that. I've never heard that before.
That's exactly right. And it takes a businessman who understands this to speak that hard truth. Much of the Republican Party wants to cut Social Security and Medicare to ship more money to foreign wars in Ukraine and elsewhere that don't advance our interests. That's what I call America last. Here's what I say. I'll fight the national debt by getting the oil and gas from underneath our ground and selling it. That buys down our national debt. And then I want to ask a different question, Eric, not how to cut Social Security, but how do we increase those Social Security benefits for many seniors, especially in the next generation? Here's how. 40 years ago, if the Social Security Trust Fund had been allowed to be invested in a diversified portfolio, just like your financial advisor would tell you to do, stocks, bonds, etc., the average person collecting $1,800 per month today would be collecting close to $18,000 per month today. That would make a major difference for seniors across this country. No other candidate's talking about it, but I think it takes a leader from the outside who's been a CEO, who actually understands basic arithmetic, to make sure we don't make those same mistakes again. I think it's a false dichotomy to say that we either have to fight our national debt or we have to keep Social Security intact. I'm the candidate who's offered a clear plan for how we can do both of those things. Yes, fight that national debt, but do the right thing for all Americans, not to cut Social Security. But actually, many of those Social Security benefits aren't even allowing seniors to have basic ends meet. That's wrong, and I will stand for our American citizens by using basic common sense that our government has failed our people to apply. And so that's the kind of president we need. That's how I'm going to lead this country, and every Republican candidate should be on board with this.
Sounds like a little Warren Buffett headed to Washington. Before I let you go, what has this been like for you? How do you like it? You're out there in the cold, out there for many hours. I've covered the Iowa caucus many times. It is quite an exercise in American democracy.
It is. It's been energizing and inspiring. We're doing it together as a family. My wife, as I mentioned, is a throat surgeon. She's a hero doing this with me, with our two kids. But I see patriots coming out who love this country. That's why they come out to these events. That's what gives me my energy. And so, Eric, it's been a rewarding process, and we'll take it away with us for the rest of our life, hopefully over the next years in the White House, propelling us to success.
Vivek Ramaswamy, Republican presidential candidate in the Iowa caucus, of course. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Ramaswamy. We'll be following you this week.
Thank you.
Take care.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.